Hi, I'm Bobby Halton. Thanks for joining with us here today at Fire Engineering's Google Hangout. We're being brought to you today by our good friends at Key Fire Hose. Please go visit their site. That's keyfire.com. Keyfire.com. Key Fire Hose is one of the leading manufacturers of fire hose in the United States. They've got a state-of-the-art plant in Dothan, Alabama. If you ever have a chance to get down to Dothan, Alabama, Larry Williams is the fire chief there. It's a quintessential little town down in Alabama. Absolutely gorgeous place to visit. Great little vacation spot, plenty of bread and breakfast. But the good folks at Key will give you a tour, and you can see how the very best fire hose in the country is made. Whether you're looking for rubber, rubber lined cotton jacketed, whether you're looking for extruded, you name it, Key can make it. And they're very diligent in how they make it. They're demanding of their personnel, and they do just an amazing job. They've worked with all the NFPA committees. All their hoses meet all the standards and all the requirements. You can't go wrong. They're great friends, and we thank them so much for their sponsorship of the show today. That's keyfire.com. If you're looking to see how quality hose is made and quality people, go check out Key Fire. Hey, thank you. It's the third Wednesday of the month, and as you know, we've been talking about our new format. So today it's Issues and Concerns in the Fire Service. And Issues and Concerns is a show, a road show that John Salka and Rick Lasky and I have been happy to do now for, I think it's 3 or 4 years now. We do it every year at FDIC, and we do it at other places around the country when we get together, where we just kind of banter about the current topics of the day and our take on them, and oftentimes engage people who are involved in those issues and get their opinions on them. So it's everything from soup to nuts. It's everything from free speech all the way down to hose and hose diameter and hose testing. So everything and anything's on the table. It's issues and concerns in the fire service. And going forward, Rick Lasky has agreed to be our go-to host, and Rick will be coming on, and John will be coming on when he can, and I'll be coming on when I can, and Eric Roden will be coming on when they can. But Rick will be lining up, and John will be lining up other people to come in and chat with us every third Wednesday about issues and concerns in the fire service. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a exciting little back and forth, and all of us have opinions, and we share them here. So that's how it's going to be going forward for the next year. That'll be the new format. And again, we want to thank our friends Key for their sponsorship of it. That's keyfire.com. So Rick, why don't you introduce the rest of the group, and then you can throw some topics at us.
Well, and thanks, Bobby. We're excited. This is we've done these before. This is incredible. The questions, we already got a bunch of questions on Twitter, and a bunch of folks that not only tune in now, but for later on, which I thought was awesome. I know so many people, as they do the radio shows and everything else, they can't catch it maybe live. So one of the first things they do is pop it on when they're on duty, and so on and so forth. But that being said, we've got some great folks with us today, and I know we got Bobby's partner. We've got not only do we have our editor-in-chief from Fire Engineering and FDIC Education Director, Chief Bobby Hall, with us, but we've got our editor-in-chief of Fire Rescue Magazine and Firefighter Nation, Battalion Chief Eric Roden from Milwaukee, and then our good buddy John Salka, served as the battalion commander of the 18th Battalion of the Bronx, now, not now, but has been a volley longer than that, 33 with New York and 38 years now in the fire service, assistant chief of the South Blooming Grove Volunteer Fire Department, north of the city of New York, and it's a great group, Bobby. We're going to get into some stuff. I know we'll probably create a little bit of controversy today, like we always do with this group, but.
And remind everybody, if you want to send in a question, it's FE Talk, hashtag FE Talk, and it'll come right to me. I'm looking at some questions now that I'm getting from folks that join with us regularly. So hashtag FE Talk, and Rick and I will pick these up, and our producer Brandon's also monitoring Twitter. So as we pick up your questions, we'll send them out there. I think one of the most significant things you forgot to mention is that John and I are still both active volunteer firefighters out there in our home communities now that we're old and in the way. Right, John?
Yes. John's got his he's got his lights and his Ford F-1000, his radios, and all his stuff, and he's doing it. Hey, Bobby, we probably, I didn't want to move any further without reminding folks about FDIC. Classes are, a lot of them are full, but there's still a lot of great programs that have seats available, and
all the hot classes are still accessible, except remember that like they go Monday and Tuesday. Some of them are 4 hours, so some of the sessions have sold out. I'd say about 12 or 15 sessions have sold out, but everything is still available as of today. Now, next week that could be a completely different story. So if you want to attend the NIST-UL live burn experiments, I'd get on that right away. If you want to attend the extrication classes, I'd get on those right away. Collapse is also filling up. Attendance is up by about 20%. So we're probably going to hit really close to that 40,000 firefighter mark this year.
That's good. That's exciting. Absolutely exciting. And for some of our viewers, don't forget, zip over to FDIC.com and check out every day. Check out the roll call tips there, and great short videos that you can show at the beginning of your volunteer meeting, training, or at the beginning of your shift, or when you got some downtime. A lot of great people, a lot of great things. I just didn't want to push out without going there. So, hey, Eric, how's things going in Milwaukee, buddy? You guys made a good grab the other day, huh?
Yeah, it's been great. We've had a big win the other night. Obviously, we've been enjoying the work, but we definitely had a humongous win. Very good story. I'll just take a real quick second to kind of give the backstory on it. We had a call came in, a report of a child trapped in the basement of a two-story occupied multiple dwelling. And it was an over-under duplex, chopped up into a few apartments. Apartment above was vacant. I pulled up. I see fire everywhere in this building. It is everywhere. And fire was already involving almost the entire first floor, auto-exposing the second floor, involving the vacant apartment above. And obviously, I have screaming family members around, bystanders, essentially letting us know we have a known life hazard in this dwelling. So we had, 2 engines on scene, a rescue right away, and another truck, and they were able to make a move, and they got the kid right away. And like I mentioned earlier, the kid was actually sitting up in the ICU in the Children's Burn Center before we even left the scene. We got a report from the deputy. So very big win. It was a young firefighter's first grab in the fire service, a big moment. His father was a very respected firefighter on our job. So just a very big win, very good for the Milwaukee Fire Department and his family as well. And also, I also want to give a public accolade out to a young man who was working at an auto shop down the street, who was closing up for the night, and looked down the street and saw the flames, and actually ran down the street, made his way into the side door of this place, crawled through under fire to try to get to the kid he could hear moaning in the off bedroom. Unfortunately, the flames and smoke were too intense, and he wasn't able to do it. But he was very, very deep inside the apartment when.
Sign him up, track him down, and sign him up, man.
I worked yesterday, and I took the battalion buggy over there, and assistant chief and one of our safety officers drove over there to personally thank the young man, and what an emotional event for him and his coworkers, and it was just a great story. So big win for everybody, not just the fire department, but for the community, and having faith in humanity that we still have bystanders that are going to make moves and try to make a grab on somebody they don't even know. So just a wonderful outcome for such an event. I mean, it was, if I would have had those companies on scene, I would have probably called it was that much fire in the place. So
and Eric, this brings up a good point, Eric, that we were just talking about prior to going live, and John, jump in, or Bobby, here's another fire where you pulled up and you had fire out almost, you're talking about almost every window. It's the Sal Marchese story I told a while ago in 142 truck in Queens, where you pull up and you got fire out every window, and nowadays you've got people saying, well, they're all dead there. And I'm in a big one. I know all the years we've been going to schools, we've been telling, excuse me, we've been telling little kids that if they, to feel the door at the back of your hand, if it's hot or warm, don't go out there. And I've been to places where there's been like the only room that that didn't have any fire. It was the one, I guess that's what bothers me about people that want to assume that there's, nobody, that I understand in the room, but unless you can see that whole building, here's another story of a rescue of a kid that's alive and well, just like Sal's OV. The only room that didn't have fire coming out of it was the one where his OV made a grab. And I think before we write off buildings and everybody's so quick to say, we don't go in if there's fire, that whole, it's blowing out all the windows. Well, it's not, we've told little kids to wait on us, and now we're not, I think a lot of places we're not as, I want to say aggressive, and I've said this before, I don't think the fire service is too aggressive. I think the word we should be using is reckless. When we become reckless, we get people hurt. It's not about being too aggressive. Thank God your guys were aggressive. Thank God Sal's OV. Bobby, you've done it. You've made grabs. John, you've made them, and you've had tons of your guys. Thank God that they're aggressive. So I think that's just another great reminder, Eric, of, when you pull up, until you say there's no one in the building, there's been a lot of posts, a lot of things lately, but unless you can tell me nobody's, if we had pulled up and said we're not going in, you're talking about a dead kid right now. I'm just slowing things down or whatever. You can't just write buildings off without making sure you've got everything covered. That's just my 2 cents. So,
well, I got 2 questions. Well, one is that the guys that are saying that, and gals, if they're, whoever's saying it, they're not paying attention to some of the basic information we've gotten out of some of the UL NIST live burn stuff that we did. We proved that if just by, as Ricky said, just closing the door creates a radically better environment than the fire environment, than the room that's involved. Just by closing the door, you've got a very tenable environment in that other room, and in terms of temperature and in terms of toxicity. So if there's a closed door, that's a big deal in terms of the survivability of our victims. Eric, if you wouldn't mind, and before we go to, can you describe the move by this young firefighter a little better? I didn't get to hear how he made the move to get this kid.
Are you talking about the civilian, or are you talking about the?
No, I'm talking about the firefighter. You mentioned that the kid that made the actual grab.
Yeah, well, we had reports of a child in the basement, and obviously, we did a quick primary of the basement and didn't find the young child. The child's actually in the kitchen area. Not sure if he attempted to escape, but he was kind of barricaded by some of the I don't know if it was the door or the appliances in the kitchen, which kind of, I guess, keeps some of the radiant heat off him. But the kid did experience some burns and has a little bit of a recovery ahead of him. But the firefighter made the grab and came out, and everybody on the street saw it go down, and it was definitely very dramatic and very everything we hope for in the fire service to see, and what our community expects from us as well.
Eric, I got another question as well. This is a question that I ask a lot when I'm doing programs around the country. Rick and I end up talking about this a lot when we do our Fireground scenario program. It's one of the big programs that we do pre-conference at FDIC as well. And here's the question. The question is, does your fire department, is it part of standard SOP for firefighters, for a search team to go in ahead of the hose line?
Yes. Yeah, we do. We don't search with hose lines, and I don't mean to knock departments that do. Obviously, those that search without hose lines, know the rapidity and the, how fast you can make a move in and out of rooms and cover more surface area. Obviously, we have hose lines, stretched, flake charged, placed in an operation to protect that search and get water on that fire. We don't, unless we have, either a credible assumption, if you will, or a known life hazard, we rarely like to go above the fire, and nobody should go above the fire without a hose line on the floor below. But if there's a known life hazard, then you make that calculated risk. And again, like Rick stated, I think it's the best way to put it is that's not a reckless move. if you have a known life hazard, and fire conditions will warrant a safe search based on the status of the first hose line, etc. But yeah, we historically and currently do not search with hose lines.
Because that issue of searching without a hose line, or let's say ahead of the hose line, certainly is something that the FDNY does routinely. Been doing it my whole career. My career is over. They're continuing to do that. And in addition, contrary to what you just said, the second due truck goes above the fire without a hose line. I mean, and that's routine in the FDNY. We do it all the time. We do it thousands of times a year, whatever the math is, I don't know. But and it just points out that different tactics are pliable and acceptable and safe in different atmospheres and with different departments, with different staffing, with different response times. And that same tactic might be unacceptable and dramatically dangerous in another fire department that has different staffing and different, et cetera, et cetera. So, sometimes people get, hunkered down on one particular tactic or one particular concept or one particular idea being a good or a bad idea. And you know what? It may not work for you, but it does work for some folks. So, along with this whole NIST-UL conversation that's going on around the country, any one tactic, whether it be my tactic, whether it be their tactics, whether it be or anything in between, there's different places where, you know what it is? It's like when you watch that commercial on TV for all the cell phone, companies, for AT&T and Verizon. You see the maps. The yellow map is AT&T, then the red map comes up at Verizon, and the other map comes up. Well, it's the same thing in the fire service. The coverage is different in different places, and different fire departments, I think, practice different skills based on their particulars, not on anybody else.
I think it's a good point also to distinguish between a private dwelling and a multiple dwelling, because obviously similar to you're part of the country. We do assign a rescue in a truck to the floor above on a multiple dwelling. Private dwelling, obviously, if we have a sizable amount of fire, we definitely obviously we'll attempt to get water as fast as possible on the floor below. But if you have that known life hazard, then yeah, absolutely, we'll commit a rescue in a truck to the floor above.
Well, and I think a lot of it goes back to what we've all talked about. Two things. One, John already mentioned it, and we say this in class all the time, especially when we do our Fireground scenarios class, is don't get hung up on your favorite tactic. Apply the appropriate tactic for what should be presented, because we've said for years there's no one fire that's the same. Anybody can tell you that fires all the same are full of it. Every scenario, every situation, every building presents its own set of circumstances and challenges. And I think if you get holed in, like John said, on just one thing, or you read one article, or you listen to one person, I think you're pigeonholing yourself into trouble, if you will, because firefighters have always been thinkers. Firefighters have always been the problem solvers. That's what we love. We love solving people's problems. We love a challenge. I think when we fail as leaders to control our people on the fireground through training or whatever, to keep their minds open to everything. What's come out of UL and this, there's some great stuff coming out of there. There's a lot of stuff that people still have questions about. But to totally turn your back on that is like to totally turn your back on anything else we've ever faced in the fire service. When we use it as an example, when John and I first started doing Get Out Alive and Saving Their Own, Bobby, you were there. People laughed at us and they talked about it and they made fun of us when we came up with the written Mayday concept. And now look at where we're at. And I think if you call yourself a proactive firefighter, you're open-minded to everything. I think people have a lot of I do when we travel. I think people have a lot of theories, or a lot of attitudes and feelings that firefighters in big city fire departments, especially those that look more traditional, are like unsafe and crazy. And I've been, in Chicago. I've been in the Bronx. I can't tell how many times in Brooklyn. I think the best way to get bitch slapped by a senior firefighter is to do something stupid. They're some of the most controlled. I've always told the story. John has been referred to as by some of the guys that cried at his retirement that love him as the safety Nazi, because he wants to make sure you go home to your family. So I think we just got to get better at bracing what's out there, but not get holed in it's kind of like, Bobby, you brought this up. Ray McCormick's great piece on urbanfirefighter.com and his website, and he was going to join us today, couldn't make it because of a scheduling conflict, but he wrote a great piece on loss of skill. And a couple of things he mentions, guys, that we've all talked about before is, and we could go all over with this, the use of ticks versus conventional search. The people that have forgotten what a Hugh Halligan bar with the signature and how, the rabbit tool is a great thing, but you still need to know how to use your Halligan tool, not bar, because the rabbit doesn't work on everything. Never say never, never say everything. Always. So I guess we've got several things. I guess I'm curious as for you guys' thoughts about what Ray wrote about. For one thing, loss of skill, Bobby. I mean, we talked about it, Bobby, the other day.
Yeah, it was a good piece. It's actually on fireengineering.com on the feature rotator if people want to find it. So it's a good short. It's a nice short read, and it's interesting. I think one of the things that I think what Ray's point was, and I don't mean to put words in Ray's mouth, but is and John talked about it. It's the silver bullet deal. Like with the volunteer job I'm with now, sometimes they'll search with a line, sometimes they'll search without a line. It all depends, on the circumstance, the building, the conditions. If it's somebody doing a VEIS, they're not going to take a line with them. They're going to go into the window and do a quick search and come out. Or occasionally, if they're going to go to a second floor, they might go to a second floor with or without a line. It's all based and predicated on conditions and on people making good judgments and then sharing those good judgments between crews so that people know where they are, people can supply them with backup or have a line on the fire or whatever. So I think what Ray was cautioning folks against there, and Eddie Buchanan and I had a great conversation about it yesterday. Eddie and Ray are two guys who get it. People think they're diametrically opposed. They're two sides of the same coin. Eddie and I were talking about the same thing. It's loss of skill. What Ray meant was that there's no, and you just said it very well, better than I ever could, Ricky, was that there's no silver bullet. You gotta know so many different techniques, so many different skills, so many different options. That's what makes the well-rounded thinking firefighter, as Tommy Brennan used to call them, thinking firefighters. The well-rounded firefighter can give you 8 or 10 or 12 ways to approach a problem. They may have their favorite, or they may have the one they think is best, but they certainly always have options. And sometimes you get a situation where you have no options. You got to just do something one way because it's the only way to do it and to get it done. But the whole point of Ray's talk was don't become over-reliant on any one tactic or any one tool.
Well, and John, that ties right to when we talked about John, your particular program, when we talk about staying oriented and the whole search and rescue and people doing different things and so on and so forth. I mean, Bobby just mentioned the thinking firefighters. I mentioned it when I see someone. I'll be say when I see somebody put something on Twitter or somewhere hashtag thinking firefighters about other things, I actually kind of take offense to that in a way because I understand what they're trying to say, but so does that mean the rest of us are dumbasses that are not forward-thinking people because maybe we haven't been sold or buy into something? So please don't call me ignorant, call me stupid, and refer to those of us that don't buy into the particular tactic, particular concept as non-thinking firefighters. Again, I'll say it again. I think firefighters are some of the progressive, forward-thinking people I know. John, we've talked about this. The loss of skill with people who no longer teach their men and women how to search, or they use the tick and say they don't have to search convention. Your thoughts, John, about staying oriented and that skill?
Oh, absolutely, and you know that from obviously that's where we met, doing our firefighter survival programs, firefighter survival classes, and I'm sure the rest of you have taught or instructed classes on making search or rescuing firefighters, or even RIT classes which encompass that same skill. I've always told guys you got to map the room. It's a term that I use all the time. I don't know if it's an accepted term or if it's a recognized term, but I use the term. You got to map the room. And not only you have to map the room, but you map a room. In other words, you go through a room, you feel a bed next to a bed, you feel a nightstand next to a nightstand. Maybe you feel the guy's got a desk or a chair to sit on. You check that whole room out. And then when you leave that room, not only have you mapped that room, but now you're leaving that room out of through a doorway that has a door on it or a doorway that doesn't have a door on it. And every one of those little pieces of information are very important to you, and you'll notice them when you're doing it with your hands. You will not notice it when you're doing it with a thermal imaging camera. You'll just tear through a doorway with a thermal imaging camera, heading towards wherever it is you're going. And if after you pass it, I ask you, was there a door on that doorway that was swung open, or was that just a doorway opening? You might not be able to answer the question. And then, of course, the obvious hazard there, like your point is, Rick, you drop that camera, the battery goes dead, the screen is broken, it gets too hot. All of a sudden, you're 3 rooms into a place, and you don't have any idea what you even passed. Even though you looked at it, you're just using it as a guidepost to run through the room. You're not really mapping it. You're not really committing it to memory. You're not really remembering where you're going. So that's just one example for sure.
Well, and I've had people tell me that they don't, because they have thermal imagery. I swear to God, that they don't teach conventional search because they've got the tick now. And I'm like, what happens, if you lose? Our good friend Captain John Wright from Fireground, Texas, who's saving lives, Bobby, because he did the article for fire engineering, he did the class at FDIC, he shared his experience of his Mayday. John's a great fireground officer and a great leader and a great guy and a great firefighter, but due to muscle memory or lack of it, he forgot he had his tick even clipped to his air pack while they were searching on his second floor. So, I just think, they kind of, let me do this, guys. Couple questions that were thrown, and one of them kind of touches on what we're talking about, and I guess we can zoom in on just one particular individual in the firehouse. And Paula W. On Twitter asked the question, what would you say is the most common rookie mistake? What would you say is the most common probie or rookie mistake? We all deal with young men and women coming on the job, but what would you say is the greatest? I don't know if we want to stay out of the firehouse, strictly, or in the firehouse or out or whatever, but just throw it out there to you guys. She asked, what would you say is the most common rookie mistake?
Who do you want to go first, Ricky?
Well, it's up to you. Eric, Eric, you not too long ago spent time as battalion chief in training, and now you're in a busy battalion, the 4th Battalion, right? 4th Battalion still?
Actually, I got a spot. I'm in the 5th Battalion. I was
5th Battalion. Sorry.
I was covering open in the 4th till the first of the year. So.
Okay, 5th Battalion, busy battalion. A busy battalion. You were in training for a while. What would you say is what you start us off? What do you think the most common probie or rookie mistake?
Well, there's so many, and I guess I don't want to pigeonhole myself in by calling them actually mistakes, but maybe I guess maybe failing to read the culture of the firehouse. I mean, obviously every fire company is different, but who are the leaders in the firehouse, the informal, formal, the thought leaders in the firehouse, who are our thinking firefighters, and who are the people you should really be listening to in the firehouse. Obviously, the loudest mouth seems to get the most attention, but it's not necessarily the person to follow and emulate and try to enculture your career around. But definitely getting a read, learning the history of the company, learning why that company is there, why what it's doing, what kind of work is it doing. We could teach you myriad fire building types in the fire academy, but which ones are in your area, and what culturally makes your company the best at fighting fires in those buildings in your first 2 areas. So I think once you grasp what you're responsible for culturally and as well as operationally, you're going to be very successful, and people will definitely see that you want to be a part of the fire company. You want to learn everything about that particular company, not just the fire department as a collective. But being engaged and all in, as a lot of us are saying these days, being all in that company, you show that day one, and your company will be all in on you. So
it is awesome. It is awesome. It's awesome, and that kind of fades to or perfectly fits into one of the other questions that we were asked by Brennan on Twitter today. And John, if you could jump on this one, you've done this tons of times before. I already know what you're going to say, which I love, but. If John would answer this one, what would your one piece of advice be to aspiring firefighters? Eric started off great with, what he said about grabbing a hold of the culture of the firehouse and understanding and how to fit in best. But John, what would be your one piece of advice to aspiring firefighters?
Well, I mean to new firefighters, guys that are on the job. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah. They said aspiring firefighters. So I guess. New guys or guys and gals that are looking to get out of the department or get into the fire service?
I mean, those are two different groups of people that I have two different things to say to. If it's people that are on the fire department, young probies or recruits or whatever you want to call them, new arrivals, my piece of advice is find out what the expectations are. Find out what's expected of you. Find out what your officer wants. You're working with a captain, you're working with a lieutenant. Find out what that guy or that gal wants, what they expect. They want fast turnouts. They want you to be awake until midnight. Whatever it is. They want you to be mopping the floor first. Whatever it is. Find out what the bosses want, and find out what the men want. Find out what your coworkers want, what the other firefighters want, because it may vary a little bit, or they may want some different things. Both of them, they want different things from you, and they may all line up and coincide with each other. The officer may not be interested at all that you come in an hour and a half early, but your brother firefighters might be demanding that. So to end this, yeah, just find out what the expectations are, both the official expectations from your bosses and from the department, and the expectations maybe from the rest of your crew or from your firehouse co-workers, what they want. As far as aspiring firefighters, as far as people that are thinking about being in the fire service, that's a tough question because I don't know. I've seen some things. I don't want to say lately because it's not just lately, but over the years I've seen some things. Most people that are attracted to the fire service are just like the four of us. They're good, hardworking people that love the work that we do and are into it and have a great attitude. But there are some people out there that are shopping around now and looking at what firefighters make and how many days a week they work and how many runs they do. And there are some people out there saying, hey, that don't look like a bad job. You know, I could make the money, get a pension, and I won't have to be crawling into houses, putting pipes or electric wires in. And, you know, so I don't know who everybody is. I don't know what an aspiring firefighter is. I think the people that are looking for the job for the right reasons, there's very little advice you have to give them. Most of them are going around the country taking tests and moving into different cities to get residency, to get on the job, and they're already all doing the right things. So I'm not saying they're all doing the right things, but I'll leave my suggestion for the folks that are on the job.
Well, and I'll throw a little piece in there. Bobby, you remember one of our good friends, Battalion Chief Jerry Wells from Louisville, one of our instructors at FDIC, did a piece during the roll call series he did for me a while back, and I think it's the March, it was a March of '97. It's a ways, but you can find it. Just go to fireengineering.com and type in Jerry Wells. You'll see all his stuff. But it was a piece he did, Bobby, called The Rookie Firefighter Preparing for the Role. And it's just a two-pager, but I used to literally keep copies of it in my desk for when somebody brought their kid in or somebody came in and said, look, I'm thinking about being a firefighter, because it covered not only those aspiring folks that want, you know, that looking to be a firefighter, I should say aspiring firefighters, but it also covered that first day in the firehouse and so on and so forth. So it kind of covered what Eric said as well as what John just said about both people. And I'd have to look real quick. The easiest thing to do would be to go ahead and go to fireengineering.com and type in Jerry Wells, W-E-L-L-S, Louisville, Texas, and it's a great piece. But and I guess because I know we got only so much time today, there's another question that Bobby, I'd like to get to if we could with you, Chris. Why not? And we got to Paula's and we got to Brennan's, and there's a bunch of others lined up there. But Bobby, Chris asked, what is some good advice? You did this actually. We're on our I'll say it on the command post on our radio show. But what is some good advice for young new officers and potential officers? It's kind of nice because we did firefighters and now we're doing potential and new officers. Some good advice, Bobby.
Well, I'll take a quick shot at all three of them. The three biggest rookie mistakes that I know of are F-350 pickup trucks, big screen TVs, and speedboats, all of which are expensive. But rookie firefighters seem to buy all three pretty quickly after they get hired.
You have to buy the car right off the bat. You got to buy the car.
Right. The F-350 pickup, dualies. The piece of advice I would give would be, to a rookie firefighter, don't take yourself too seriously, but take the job deadly seriously. We tend to take ourselves a little too seriously sometimes. And then for young officers, much like in the military, we had a good discussion last night. We actually had a discussion on Sons of the Flag on Fire Engineering Talk Radio last night with Captain George Burke, who was a sole survivor of a plane crash where 14 other airmen died, and Captain Burke survived that crash, burn survivor. But we were talking about young officers, and I think one of the things that the military does a good job of, and John's son is a Marine Corps lieutenant. My son's a naval lieutenant. Is that they teach them early on to respect the information that the master chiefs and the chiefs and the gunnies and the first sergeants have in the respective branches, and to seek those people out and get their advice early on in your career, so that you create a network of relationships and that you learn how to integrate your decisions, so you're not making a decision from a singular perspective, but rather that you're garnering all of that experience and knowledge and wisdom that's around you and that's more than willing to share with you, so that you don't repeat the mistakes. Every mistake that's been made has been made before. I've made most of them, and you can share that information with people so that they don't have to make those mistakes and hopefully make better decisions. So I would say that my advice to a young officer: reach out to the senior drivers, reach out to the senior firefighters, even reach out to your crew, and just take a little time and when you can, obviously not on the Fireground, but when you can, get their opinions, get their feel for things, and I'll tell you, it goes a long way to being a better officer, is to learn how to listen.
Well, and Brandon just popped on there and shot us a note saying he's actually going to post Bobby and Eric and John Jerry Wells' article to Fire Engineering's Twitter. So for those that might be looking for it, that's great right there. So hey, another thing we were talking about Bobby the other day, and I know Eric, you and I have talked about Josh stuff we talk about all the time, but we review tons of articles. I know Bobby and Eric do tons of them, but I get to do my share through Diane Feldman and Diane Rothschild. What I run into a lot is the same thing kind of at FDIC, Bobby, when we do the class submissions, is we're always looking for that next all-star. That we're always looking for great stuff from great people out there, and don't get frustrated. Keep writing, keep submitting. But at the same time, I think we've got to get some people maybe to step up. I'll throw this out there to our audience as just a little hint, if you could help us. If somebody sits down with you and says, "Hey, Cap, what do you think about this article I'm submitting to Fire Rescue, Fire Engineering, this class?" If you see anything in there that's not theirs, you might want to tell them ahead of time, because I think this is a problem we see. I won't say all the time, but often, is people. I don't want to say stealing work, Bobby, maybe borrowing it or whatever. I think sometimes it happens on accident, where guys read enough, they go enough, they're out there, and this idea pops in their head for an article, a class, and like, oh my God. And I don't think they don't even realize, but I think some people outwardly just go out, and you and Eric see it, John and I have talked about it. There are guys, there's folks that just outward steal stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's gotten easier because of the internet or whatever, but
there's two great lines that people always use when they talk about plagiarism, and that's what Rick is alluding to here, is that if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many, that's research. So there's always that fine line. So I've been stealing from the many for as long as I possibly could. The other thing that was, John Kennedy had a great line, and he said, if you want to be quotable, quote. The more you quote people, the more quotable you'll become. So it's just advice to young writers. But I also want to interject real quick here at that half-hour mark. We're a little late. Don't forget, keyfire.com. Go to keyfire.com. Our great hosts hosting today, our sponsors for today's show, keyhose.com, keyfirehose.com. But it's keyfire.com, but it's Key Fire Hose. Great company out of Dothan, Alabama. Wonderful people, unbelievable products. Please go to their website. And thank you again to Key for sponsoring this today. But yeah, great question. And I guess the question, John, is that giving people attribution is important. Letting people know where you got your information from or your thoughts from is important. What books you're referencing. I know a lot of us take great pains to let people know. Hey, this is a quote from Andy Fredericks, or this is a quote from Brian Crawford, or this is a quote from John Salka. Not that I quote Salka often.
Well, I'm hardly ever talking about Benjamin Franklin or the Constitution, but.
Well, and John, you and I have talked about it. I know Eric has. I mean, it's kind of like you always tell people. It's like the people say, "Can I have your PowerPoint, 189 slides?" And sometimes you want to be able to do it. Sometimes, like, dude, the stuff's out there. you know, enough. You know, you need to kind of do your own work once in a while. So, but
Well,
anyway.
the new thing we're seeing at conferences, and John, you've seen this, where you're teaching, there's a guy in your class with his phone, he's taking pictures of your slides.
Oh, iPad up in here and so and so. Well, and that kind of, and I'll throw this to John first, maybe, and Bobby, and then Eric, but kind of leads to the whole we've been talking about, this whole street cred thing with, you know, you see the submissions, you see the classes, you see the articles, you know, 5-year, 6-year firefighter that submits this long thought out process idea on wanting to teach company officer leadership, and you know, or something. I'll just tell you, I never tried to teach anything that I wasn't either doing or well versed in or whatever. I just, you know, I just would feel too uncomfortable. But John, you and I've talked about that. I'll ask you first about having that that credibility as to what you're out there trying to. You know, it's one thing to sit at the kitchen table talk about something. It's another thing to go out and teach it or receive money for teaching for something maybe you may not have the experience or background in.
And you know what? I think that's what happened. I think what happens is sometimes issues come up. Maybe you got a bad boss or a lieutenant that's a little bit overbearing, and it becomes a topic of discussion in the firehouse amongst the men and the firefighters, and what's going on and how's this guy treating us. And somebody maybe gets inspired to do something, to write something or whatever about something that maybe is really just a conversational issue rather than something that they're really well trained or have a lot of experience in. You get these calls all the time. Bobby, I know you get them. Eric, in your position now with the magazine, we all get these conversations, these calls from people, these emails, or somebody after the seminar that comes up and talks to us. Somebody just came up to me the other day in Rhode Island and said, "Hey, Chief, I would love to eventually maybe someday be out on the lecture circuit like this. I got 10 years in the fire service." I said, "Are you an officer or firefighter?" "I'm a firefighter." You know, so we get people all the time asking us, "Gee, I'd like to break into what you do. I'd like to," and I always tell them, start writing. And to pick a subject, Vinny Dunn gave me the best advice I ever got about 30 years ago. He said, pick a subject that you're well versed in, that you understand, that you have experience in, that you really know. And that's the tip here. You got to pick a topic that you really know. He said, and then just come up with 10 ideas. There's your 10 paragraphs. There's your article. And frankly, it's a pretty, I know it's not a college level, description of how to write an article, but it really does work. And the key there is what we're talking about here is I always tell people, just don't talk about something, don't write about something, don't discuss anything that you don't really know, that you don't really have a good handle on, that you're just going to be just spouting ideas that you heard at the kitchen table, or maybe ideas that are totally incorrect. Write something that you got a good base in.
I guess I'll throw this in. You don't have to be an expert at everything. I mean, it's nice to find that niche and to get that, have that empiricism behind it as well, where you're actively doing it, researching it. There's a few individuals out there doing amazing things, and again, we go back to say one of the most quoted firefighters in the industry, Andy Fredericks. Andy made it cool to be on the engine again, and brought it back and really focused on that, and he didn't reinvent the wheel. He just got very specific about that wheel and every inch of that wheel. So that's another good place to start. Start at the basics. Master what makes that basic effective and successful, and move on from there. You don't necessarily need to get a PowerPoint, 189 slide PowerPoint from somebody, but attend the class, take the hot button items that you enjoyed that really made you maybe a couple of the aha moments, and build upon those, and find maybe perhaps a different way to look at it. So obviously, being in the magazine world, intellectual property is everything, and I really think that having your own intellectual property, you want to guard that, and it's very sacred, and it's an accomplishment that you have. So when you come up with your own idea, it is very it's enlightening, very refreshing, and very self-inspiring. So my advice to people out there is find your own voice in the fire service, and be that voice on paper and print and in the magazines.
Well, and I agree, and I think the foundation for everything we're talking about, whether you're writing, teaching, or whether you're that new firefighter or that company officer or chief, I think it's all about passion. If you're going to go out and teach something, write about something, like you said, Eric, you got to be passionate about it. You got to believe it's not just, well, I just want to get in the magazine, so I'm going to write whatever. I think you have I think you can read between the lines with those folks. I love reading a piece. I love sitting in a classroom with someone who's passionate. You can just tell they're into it. Like you said, they're absorbed. They're well versed with it, but you can just tell they're having fun. They're excited to be up there teaching, or you can feel the energy in their article that they submitted to either one of the magazines or the websites or whatever, the blogs that they're into it. So.
Hey, Bobby, I got a question on this subject real quick for Bobby. Actually, for Bobby and Eric. I don't know, Eric, you mentioned intellectual property, and with the growing number of forums that there are out there. I mean, every magazine's got the blogs. I mean, I write some blogs. Rick's doing some blogs. I mean, everybody does blogs. So we get the
Firefighter
blogs,
Nation.
right? We get the blogs. We have the online articles. We have the magazine articles. We have the words that come out of your mouth at a seminar that somebody could easily have their iPad or whatever recording, and typing it for you. So I mean, there are so many places, there are so many sources that material comes from. You look at a guy like Rick Lasky, and over the course of a year, however many seminars he does, however many articles he writes, how many blogs he does, he's putting stuff out there in so many different venues, so many different places that sometimes it's hard to account for and to protect your intellectual property, because people can, frankly, they can just, like I said, they could tape your verbal discussion at a seminar, put it into words, take pieces of it, and print it the next day. And you don't say copyright at the end on your last slide. Say this, all the stuff I've told you is copyrighted. So it's pretty hard. The written word obviously is a little bit easier, but I know colleges have whole programs that they put people's papers through to make sure that whole sections.
They do in my daughter's high school as well. So they'll run right through.
Absolutely. So sometimes we do want to share our information. We do want people to take our information and even repeat it and share it with others without crossing that line of taking credit for it. It's really a credit-taking problem, not a sharing problem.
And I think you raised a couple of really great points, John. There's two things. There's nothing new under the sun, and we've all learned. John was talking about Vinnie Dunn, Ray Downey, Tommy Brennan, Andy Fredericks, John Mittendorf. I mean, we've all learned. Dodson did a great job with his reading Smoke. Everybody, we've all learned from other people, and then put our own spin on it or put our own piece on it. But it's always nice when a guy gives attribution and says, hey, a lot of this I learned from this person, or this is a takeoff on a story that I heard from this guy. I think that goes a long way to establishing your street cred. And I think there's two issues that Rick raises. One is street cred, and a friend of mine, we talked when we were joking one day, we ought to have an app in the fire service, and it ought to have everybody's bio, and I mean your real bio, like mine. Worked at the Albuquerque Fire Department, was promoted this day, to this rank, was promoted this day to that rank, promoted this day. So you could say, okay, this guy was a firefighter for 5 years, he was a driver for 6 years, he was a lieutenant for 5 years, he was a captain, so you would know. I think that would be a really cool thing, kind of like a street cred app. Just an idea. Some smart kid out there could probably build it overnight and put it out there. So you could put your stuff out there. For guys like me and John and Ricky and Eric, our lives are an open book. Everybody knows where we work. They know how long we work there, when we work there, which is fine. But a lot of times there's cats out there that have got some good information, but you don't know who they are and you don't know where they're from. So it would just be kind of a cool idea. That's the pedigree. We always talk about what's a person's pedigree. How do they have, in fact, because I think real world experience is really important in the fire service. I think without it, people have a hard time intellectually and morally or accepting what we do. Like a lot of the people who critique us taking risk have never really taken any risks. They don't understand what it means to really trust somebody with your life or trust your crew with your life to go above a fire. So they don't understand that they bemoan it or they have a problem with it because they've never done it. Lacking that real world experience, that's a moral and intellectual leap for them that they just can't handle because they've never done it. And that's not to say they're bad people, but they when they critique us for doing it, they lack that experience. So I think there's two things Ricky's talking about. One is attribution, giving people credit for the stuff you're talking about, even if you put your own spin on it. And then the other problem I think that Ricky's talking about is just flat out plagiarism. When you tell a story or you do something that's just not your stuff, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And then there's then there's street cred. And those are three big issues to being a credible instructor, a credible leader.
Well, and one of the things I mention in class a lot is a conversation I had with Mike Madonna, who's a pretty famous NHL hockey player. When they had a coach, Hitchcock was a coach at Dallas for years and did great things, got to the Stanley Cup and some other things, but there once in a while be a rift between the players, and Hitch is a very good coach, I should say. One thing Mike said that sometimes that last step of being that great coach is it's kind of hard to yell at guys to go out and take a hit against the boards when you've never played hockey. My daughter's all her life with softball. There's some coaches that are coaching that they've watched videos. They've never even played the game. So I think you've got to have some of that behind there. But I know we're down to about 7 minutes or so, Bobby and Eric and John. But maybe we could try to pop in a couple more questions here. I know we have another topic we want to get to, but guys, Bill Carey asked a question that I know all of us are very passionate about. But how should efforts to reduce line of duty deaths be guided by data, by organization-specific niches, or whatever? But how should those efforts to reduce line of duty deaths be guided? I guess. What direction would take us to the best, our best chance of seeing maybe the numbers go down just a little bit? Eric, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to go data. Obviously, that's near and dear to my heart. I do have a big data bias. However, obviously that data has to be interpreted by somebody. So finding the right individuals to interpret that data, and I'll sound like a nerd here for a second, but geospatially plot that in your city as to where these line of duty deaths are occurring and injuries are occurring is also very important. But also knowing what the data is actually telling us, and I guess I'll spoil this a little bit, but so there's some editorial that will be coming out on Fire Engineering, Fire Rescue, and Firefighter Nation about line of duty deaths, what the numbers told us in 2014, and kind of start a different conversation, or maybe a more objective conversation to kind of take some of the rhetoric out, take some of the I'll say it, I'll sound like the chief here, but maybe the hard words and the polarizing words out of it, and really roll up our sleeves and look at what's causing our line of duty deaths, our cancer risks, etc. So, it should be guided by data. We have to analyze the numbers the right way. We have to find the right algorithms, and I really apologize to the viewers for sounding like a complete nerd here, but really look at these numbers, and as well as you're looking at the departments. What are the standing operating procedures? Do they have standing operating procedures? Are they in writing? How do they respond to this type of fire building? What were the response times? How much? How many? What was the staffing on the scene? And I'll throw a little plug in. It's kind of a startup group that's kind of underway. It's the N4s group. Through the International, the I-Chiefs, and some other stakeholders in the fire service are looking at the kind of an accompaniment to the N1st program. It's N4's is National Fire Operations Reporting System, where they want to actually look at the time stamping of our rigs and our signals to the dispatcher of fire under control, when the victim was grabbed, how many firefighters were on scene, how many companies were on scene, etc. So they're doing some good work, and I'm definitely keeping my eye on them to see what they have, because I think that's exactly where the fire service needs to head. And I really think that as we start looking at future NIOSH reports and our after-action reviews, it's not going to be the he said, she said at the back step, which is very good and very valuable, but we need to see, okay, wait, we had 3 engines on scene, and it took us forever to get water on this fire. Then we can actually learn what our training needs are and our deployments and changes to our deployment strategies that need to be made. So obviously I have a data bias, but I think that the fire service needs to look at the data a lot more, since we have the analysis is much better than it was, let's say, in the 1970s when we were relying on data for other things. So just my 2 cents on that.
Well, and I was just going to add it real quick. Our producer is how much time that we have left to see if we can attack something or whatever. If I know we started.
Can I chime in on that one before you go away too, Ricky? Because I think it's important. That I think that, and not to get too wonky again, but I think the other thing we need to do is get away from some of this Newtonian, Keysartian reductionism, where we try to boil everything down. You know, we use a model like the human factors analysis stuff and all that. Some of that modeling goes back to the times of Descartes and Newton. We're talking 400 years ago. And then a lot of these human factors, yeah, humans are involved, and if you look at some of them, it's absolutely it's interesting. And I think that the new science, the new model of looking at accident investigation analysis or incident investigation analysis is more to do with sense making for a general term, which yields far greater knowledge, workable knowledge, than just saying where people zigged when they should have zagged. It's important, and I think that we're starting to break out of it. I think more and more people are getting better educated as to how to look at analysis.
Well, and that's awesome, and I think all this that we're talking about with the information that's out there, this is nothing new. Eric said it, you said it, Bobby. I'm going to ask John a question here. Brandon said we can go over a few minutes. John, Eric just said it, Bobby just said it about looking at it's kind of hard to turn your back on what are the facts of what's been going on all these years. And John, you hit it all the time in class when you talk about go to NIOSH. I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder. I mean, your beliefs in the NIOSH reports are huge.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't know if I'm disagreeing with Bobby and Eric to some degree right now. I just think that the fire service in general, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and all the other leaders, all the other people that are really leading the charge for reducing firefighter fatalities, I think they're about 3 orbits too high. I think they're getting so technical from about facts and information and analysis and all this other stuff, and I'm not degrading. I'm not eliminating those things or the importance of those things, but I think we're about 3 orbits beyond where we really need to be with fire. First of all, there is no solution for firefighter fatalities. There is no one answer. There is no one scheme. There is no one behavior. There is no one tactic. There is no one culture. There is no one solution. And there are people out there talking like, if you would just do this, we'd have it beat. And the answer is no, we won't. Now Ron Sunicki just came out with, our goal is 50. 50 is our goal. God, I'd love to talk to Ron. Number one, I love Ron. I love the organization, but I wonder how they come up with the number 50. Number two, more firefighters are killed by knives and forks than by smoke and fire. Okay, and finally somebody has recognized that. Finally, the National Fallen Firefighters have recognized the fact that more firefighters are killed because of not because of the firehouse culture, because of their personal culture, because of the way they live their lives, what they eat, the fact that they don't exercise, the fact that they're not fit, the fact that they shouldn't be riding a fire engine. That's the reality. About half the firefighters that die in the United States every year die of cardiac-related illnesses. Maybe some of it is related to the work we do, but I think some of it's related to the lives that people live. Anyway, I tell people, don't worry about line of duty deaths. Don't worry about how many people died in the line of duty last year. It's wonderful that we know. It's wonderful that it's going down. I said, just worry about your fire department, the Leakyville Fire Department, the West Mudflapville Fire Department. Just worry about your fire department, worry about your shift, your battalion, maybe even just the guys on your rig. If everybody just localized what they worried about, just keep your 3 guys safe, just keep your crew safe, just keep your battalion safe, I think if everybody did that, we go a lot further than worrying about solving this national problem that we're all trying to solve. There really is no one answer. There's different answers in Hurleyville than there are in Washingtonville than there are in Miami. There's different answers in different places to reducing line of duty deaths.
Well, and that brings up something that we always end up, I know, John, Bobby, when the 3 of us, when we teach together, Eric, we end our class with something I've read a book for years. I gave it to all my staff years and years ago. And the title of the book, it's a 10-minute quick motivational read called 212 Degrees, The Extra Degree. And it's about the power of 1 degree. And, Bobby, you've heard it a ton of times, John, you haven't, and I'm going to say it here. I think the fire service, we're problem fixers, and what ends up happening is we try to, we get so hell-bent on trying to fix our nation's fire service that we don't fix a whole lot. Then we try to fix our whole state's fire service, and we don't and our whole department. And the whole point is the power of 1 degree is, you know, how it's written is at 211 degrees, water's just hot. At 212 degrees, just 1 degree more, it boils. So boiling water can produce steam. With steam, you can power a locomotive, a train. So I agree. I think our goal should be to find, you know, to find what you're doing in your department, how your people are brought on, what you're holding them to standards, how you practice, how you train, turnout gear, driving, SCBAs. I had to change a lot of my bad habits. I grew up with a bunch of cave people. I did. About face pieces. And, you know, if you're not wearing your face piece nowadays, you're a fool. If you don't wear your seatbelt, I don't get that anymore. I agree. I think you know. I think there's some great. I love having the data. I love having the statistics. I love being able to look at that. That's my foundation, because I can say, look, nothing's changed. That's proved to me nothing's changed. If we were in corporate America, they put us in jail for how we kill ninja firefighters. We rub people's shoulders and give them medals instead of holding people accountable. You know, all of us have some kind of military ties with our kids and so on and so forth. We know how they take care of things. That's where the parallel stops between us, the fire service, and the military. So I love the information, the data. John, you know, you're always in class pushing guys to get to the NIOSH reports, read them, everything, study them. But I agree. I think, you know, also is we got to get going. We got to get the company officers, the chiefs, and the firefighters to step up and say, you know, this is what we're going to do, and concentrate on those efforts. So, but. Well, you know what? I think we're there, guys. Hey, Bobby, can we do these for like 3-4 hours? Can we do those for 3 or 4 hours next time, or, you know, or 5 hours? How about an 8-hour?
You got to buy me lunch if I'm doing it for 3 hours.
No.
What a great concept, though. I've watched some of these before, Eric and Bobby, and what a great concept.
Hey, listen, I just want to thank our friends at Key Fire Hose. You know, keyfire.com, Key Fire Hose, seriously. I mean, you know, I've said it a few times, but, you know, we can't do stuff like this if we don't have great people like Key that step up and make it possible. And Key is going to be sponsoring every second Wednesday going forward, so they'll be sponsoring the Fireground with our good friends Bill Guston. Next week, we've got Frank Ritchie and PJ Norwood doing firefighter health and safety concerns. They'll be talking about everything to do with firefighter health and safety, so PJ and Frank will be joining Eric and I. We're looking forward to that. Rick, thank you so much for stepping up and being the new key man, the host for issues and concerns in the fire service. That'll be every third Wednesday of the month. If there's a fifth Wednesday of the month, we'll rest. We'll just leave you alone. We won't invade your Wednesday. We'll give you a break. I don't know. Maybe we'll fill it in with a guest appearance or something. I don't know. We'll think about it. But right now we're just shooting for the first 4 of the month. I want to say thank you to Rick for doing that. It has been great, and really, please go to keyfire.com, keyfire.com. Take a look at their great products. Take a look at this great company, and learn more about your hose. I mean, you know, John Salk always talks about it. You know, the hose to us is like the gun to cops. If you don't understand the hoses and water flows and nozzles, you got a lot of homework to do, and there's a lot to know and a lot to learn. So, and a lot on their site that can help you. They're really, really good people. So thank you again to Key.
Well, check out. Hey, they've got those Bernard Easy exits. I know I was all over their website, and I know they've got a ton of great stuff. But I mean, the only thing those are going to do is save a firefighter's life, and that's John Sulka's quote from years ago. So, Eric, thank you so much, brother. I'm excited to be coming to work for you with the blog, pridenorshipblog.com. We're getting that set up. I'm so fired up about that, brother, coming to work for you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I appreciate it, yeah. Can't wait.
It's going to be great. Bobby, thank you so much for the honor. John, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. And,
I want to thank all that tuned in and watched and listened and called in. Thanks to the callers. Always makes a good show.
You know, we didn't get to everybody's questions, but please, for those of you that have been watching, remind everybody these are going to be, they're recorded, so you're going to get to go back and play them over and over again for drill at the beginning of your shift, your monthly meeting or whatever. So spread the word about the Humpday Hangouts.
If you're having trouble sleeping at night, you can play them.
Well, everybody, hey, thanks, and I'm going to say something for all of us I know is very, excuse me, close and dear to us. So we close this out with this. Please keep the men and women serving in armed forces and your thoughts and prayers, and remember, that never forgetting means never forgetting. Thanks, guys.